My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC fight picks and DraftKings lineups run by MMA insiders and professional fighters. Every week, I join Dan Kramer and Nick Newell, two longtime professional fighters that have fought at the highest levels on the planet, as well as Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. So join us every single week for our full fight card breakdowns, our individual fight card breakdowns, our betting guide, and our DraftKings lineups. We're coming off the heels of one of the most exciting pay-per-views I've seen in a very long time. And we have actually a pretty good fight night before a week off. So let's get right into this. At first up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Rafael Alves versus Damir Ismagulov. And this is a very interesting fight for two reasons. One, I pronounced his last name correctly, and you know that is not easy for me. And two, Rafael Alves missed weight by the largest margin in the history of the UFC. He missed by what, 2 weight classes, Jacob? It was something obscene.
Yeah, well, this one's at lightweight, but he missed featherweight and he missed lightweight for his last fight, so that was not good.
Yeah, it was an absolute disaster, and the UFC is rewarding him by giving him a hammer and letting him get absolutely destroyed by Damir. Daniel, you're giving me a smirk like you don't think that's going to happen. I'll let you break this fight down.
No, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. But I'll be honest, when I watch tape on these guys, I don't think the odds, they dropped already a little bit. Might have been some of my betting action. No, he was at plus 475 earlier in the week. And Ismagulov was minus 625.
Yeah, I think it depends on the book, because I checked them before this, and there were still some books that had them like at 625 and stuff like that. So I think it depends on the book.
I did not bet the money line here because I don't think Alves will win. I think there's a chance he could win, but I guess my point is I don't think he should be, when I was looking at almost a 5-1 underdog. Ismagulov is very good. I think he'll win, but and I think he'll probably win fairly convincingly, but I think there are a lot of scenarios here that could play out negatively for him. So let's just, jump right in. So Ismagulov, guy's on a 14-fight win streak. He's a very, very good long striker, good combinations, got a super sharp right hand. When he throws that right hand, he stuns people with it. And he's very, very good at using his length and distance. Forget the 14-fight win streak. I was most impressed with his last fight. He beat Thiago Moises. That is a legit win. Moises is a very, top of the division contender. He won the striking exchanges. He dropped them in the first. Moises switched to wrestling in the second round, and Ismagulov defended really well. So it looks like he's got some good takedown defense. And honestly, he even defended a couple times. Moises got really deep in on shots, and he still managed to defend. So he looks like he's very good everywhere. I will say that Moises did stun him in the second a little bit, and he got right back up. So he can be phased. He can be hit. So we saw that. He bounced right back. And, overall, he looks like a very, very good, complete fighter. The one thing I'll say about the fight, though, it never felt like the pace was too intense, right? It was like he was controlling the striking. Moises was doing what he was doing, but nobody ever really went for broke. There were never any wild adrenaline dump exchanges that I saw, at least. But it was a good fight, and Ismagulov looked good. He's looked very, very good in all of his fights. So he's fighting Rafael Alves, and as Angelo said, very interesting matchup here because of his weight miss. He's 19-9, but that record is very deceiving. He hasn't lost since 2016. He's been fighting since 2007, and somehow he's only 30 years old. Unless Sherdog is just wrong on all these stats. I'm like doing the math. I'm like, this guy was fighting when he was 15 years old.
Well, you know how that age goes sometimes with the foreign fighters.
Yeah, I don't know how old he is, but whatever. If all this is right, he's been fighting since a very young age. And a lot of his losses, let's put it this way, they were prior to 2016. So he's had a lot of years to improve since then. From what I've seen in recent tape, he looks like a very well-rounded fighter. He's got a bunch of KOs, a bunch of subs, very explosive. His last fight against Flores, he looked good. It was close in the striking early, but I would say Flores looked really good there. And I would say matchup-wise, his last fight against Flores could be similar to this. He's a very long striker, so kind of similar style, similar lengths. I would say that Alves, almost all of his shots are power hooks, but he has good timing on it. So he's going to be pressuring, trying to cut off the angles, but he's also patient. So he's not like reckless abandon. He kind of puts that steady pressure, cuts the angles off, and then comes out when he sees the opening and lands a big bomb. So anyways, my point is he's a calculated, skilled fighter. And I think he's a lot better than his record suggests. And I think he's a lot better than the odds suggest. He got a guillotine out of nowhere in that fight. So he's got subs as well. I know he's training at MMA Masters now, which is a good gym, and they've been getting better over the years. I think Colby's down there now. So he's got good training partners. I think he's live to win this fight. I don't think he will, but there are a few bets I made that, I thought were kind of worth the value. But anyways, I mean, all in all, I think this is Ismagulov's fight to lose. He should win the fight. He's looked great, distance. The crazy thing about him too, is he's only been fighting, I think, for like 6 years. Like, I think he started training right before his first pro fight, which was in like 2014 or 2015. So it's not like he's got a 10 plus year career from what I saw, at least. So I think it's going to be a great fight. I think Alves is very live early for a knockout, could get a sub. But if he doesn't get that, I think Ismagulov is going to be dealing with him similar to how he dealt with Moises. Piece him up, keep the distance, land the clean shots, avoid danger, and probably win a decision. So I'll give everyone a little hint on my bet. All right. So there's a prop bet you can make. Get on it now before the lines change, where you can take Alves at like plus 250, but if it goes to a decision, the bet is wiped. So I don't see Ismagulov.
I like those protection bets because
Ismagulov has been a decision machine.
Lately. Yeah, that is a perfect bet. Because actually the prop bet I have is Ismagulov to win by decision, because he's not going to get a finish. Winning by decision will help out these minus 550 and get me minus 2 something. So I think
what'd you get, minus 2 something on that?
I'll have to look it up. It was like minus 270 or something like that. Yeah. Because I saw that early and I was like, you know what? I never place my bets early. I always wait till like the day before we do our betting guide. Like I write down which ones I like, and then I wait till the betting guide. And
which
then
you learned last week. You learned when I got all those better odds.
I did learn when you and I last week had the exact same bet and you had better odds every time. So anyway, I agree with the analysis. I mean, I think Damir Ismagulov wins. I think it's very clear that he wins. He should win. He has not fought in 2 years. That's always a big question mark anytime that happens. And Rafael Alves can knock you out. He can submit you. And he is like a finisher. I think the problem is if he can't finish you, he ends up in trouble. Like he's either he finishes you or he gasses trying, and then he's got nothing. So I think Ismagulov wins a decision here. And what you will notice with the Monkey Knife Fight line, it just says strikes. They have moved, and they are now only doing strikes, meaning before it was significant strikes. Now it is all strikes. Any strike thrown in the fight, that's the line. It is no longer only significant strikes. So I don't know what percentage. Let's say in a fist fight in UFC, let's say 75% of the fights strikes were significant. Now it's 100% of the strikes are counted. So you would assume these lines go up a little bit. Raise your thinking when you're looking these lines. And I would say in this fight, I would take the more on both, because I think it will go to a decision. So automatically you have 3 rounds of action. And I think Ismagulov is busy, right? He's a point fighter, but he's a busy point fighter. So I'm going to go the more on both there. And I think that's probably one of the few, other than the Ismagulov wins by decision, That's one of the few plays I'll have here because these are very lopsided. I do think Rafael Alves has a chance. And Dan, I think the only bet that would make sense on him is the protected one where he either wins by stoppage or if he loses a decision, you get all your money back.
Plus two. Yeah, get all my money back. Plus 240 odds on that though, which listen, plus 240 solid because you get all your money back with a decision and it's going to go to a decision if he loses. So, Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my favorite thing about that weight cut or lack of weight cut, I guess that weight miss was his like fake tears before he walks up to the scale and then like just starts like whimpering and like bringing up these fake tears before he jumps on the scale and then jumps on the scale. And that was going to be his UFC debut. I mean, that's got to be like one of your biggest moments. If you can't make weight for your UFC debut, I mean, what kind of discipline do you have in your life? And he's like one of those guys too that's like an overconfident fighter. The second he starts landing strikes, he'll drop his hands and really start showboating.
Yeah, he's flashing.
The contender series fight, he backflips into the ring, messes up the backflip, so he goes and redoes the backflip because he's like got to be the guy that like shows off and stuff. So as like a person, I'm not a big fan of Rafael. But with Damir too, I agree with you guys. He is very, very good. And he's such a smart fighter too. He strikes when he needs to strike, but if he needs to grapple too, he'll grapple, he'll shoot a takedown and steal around if he needs to. So, and the big thing, I mean, Dan mentioned it, the biggest thing about this entire fight is Damir beat a former lock of the week winner in Thiago Moises. I mean, you mentioned it was Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises is a former lock of the week winner. So if you're beating lock of the weeks, man, what are you going to do to a 19-9 fighter who can't make weight? So I have Damir in my lineup. I think he gets it done. I think he finds a way to get a finish as well. And yeah, that's my, and I agree with you on the strikes as well. I'll go more on this as well.
Yeah, I have him in my, I forgot to mention, I do have him in my lineup because I think he scores a ton of points. I think he wins. $9,500.
Ismagulov you have?
Yes. Yeah. I think he's worth, I don't see, obviously he can lose. I just don't see that happening. And I didn't know, I forgot that Thiago Moises to beat a former lock of the week winner that's like rare because there's so few of them. To beat an actual lock of the week winner is like, that's not easy.
That could be looked at as disrespectful, Jacob. I don't know.
That's that way.
I'll let the people speak for me. I mean, he's digging his own grave. I mean, it's just say what you want to say. I mean, go ahead, Angelo.
No, I'm talking about Ismagulov. That's a little disrespectful that he beat your lock of the week pick. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you want to handle that.
If I were to ditch him out of my lineup, and we'll talk about this in the breakdown video, I'd swap him out for Big Ben Rothwell. But I do think Ismagulov will score more points than Ben Rothwell, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have the return of Yancy Medeiros versus another Damir, this time Damir Hadzovic. This is a very interesting fight. I actually, I say that quite a bit. This one is interesting because Yancy Medeiros was like a rising star with awesome striking, solid jiu-jitsu, was great everywhere, and then just sort of hit a skid, never looked the same. I think he left his gym, but he's back to his roots. He's training, back in Hawaii with Max Holloway and all of them. Jacob, I know you will always pick a Hawaiian. I like Yancy Medeiros in this fight. I like the matchup for him. I think he's one of the better underdogs to pick here. But I'll let you go first, Jacob, because you just love Hawaiians so much.
This was going to be my lock of the week. And with DraftKings, it makes sense. But with the odds, he is a slight underdog, but I just can't do that for lock of the week. But like you said, I love my Hawaiians. And, man, is he just like the prototypical Hawaiian. He is tough, man. And he mentioned his skid. He kind of ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw with, Donald Cerrone back when Donald was still Donald. And then Gregor Gillespie, which we saw what he does. And then we saw Lando Venata. We just saw him fight, which is just, I mean, those are three fantastic fighters to lose to. So you can't really, discredit him quite as much for that. He's 15-7, but I think he's a much better fighter than a 15-7 fighter. He's got good judo. He was in a wild fight against Charles Oliveira and actually had Charles really, really hurt in that fight. He's got great power. He gets a little bit sloppy, but that's kind of like just the way he fights is just take one to give one, and he'll hang in the pocket and fight. And I think this fight, like you said, I think it works out very well for him because Damir also will brawl. And I think that's going to favor Yancy. And I think, first of all, I'll take the more on this because I think they're both tough guys and they'll both brawl. Damir with his last fight was very weird because he got taken down and submitted almost like he was like uninterested or like almost like he didn't even know what he was doing. At the speed at which he was taken down and his back was taken, and he was choked out and the fight was over. And you're like, what the hell happened there? So yeah, it is funny. Yancy too. He's got the old school Reebok on, shorts on there, but yeah, I like Yancy in this fight. He made it in my lineup. And I just like his toughness. And I think he, in a brawl, I'll take him in a brawl over most people. So I have him in my lineup. I like him to win. And I like them more on the monkey knife fight.
I agree with all that. And it's funny because if you look into their records a little bit, Yancy Medeiros has fought some of the best of the best. Like he's had a really rough road. Like he's had very few easy fights. And he did pretty well for the most part. If you look at Damir's record, it's not that. And even the people he beat are no longer in the UFC. So the two people he beat in the UFC aren't even in the UFC anymore, where Yancy Medeiros has fought some of the best people in the UFC, period. So I think the style matchup is solid. Yancy is good in his feet, good on the ground, not great wrestling. Damir marches forward. He's busy with his punches, but I feel like it's just to get you against the cage, to get you to the ground. His grappling's not fantastic. His wrestling's not fantastic, but he is a hammer on top. I mean, if he gets on top, he's busy, he's throwing heavy, and he's going to make it work. And for the monkey knife fight line, that's fantastic because even if he gets on top, he's going to be busy, and every single strike matters now. It's not just significant strikes. So
I don't think he's going to get on top. I
don't think he will. No, I don't think he will.
I like Yancy's takedown defense.
Yes.
And even like I mentioned, he's got good judo. I think if he tries, I think Yancy judo throws and ends up on top if he even tries any of that nonsense. So I love Yancy in this matchup.
I don't think he gets up on top. I agree with you. Yancy Medeiros' takedown defense is very good. I'm just saying if he does get on top, because it is possible, it is a fist fight, he is busy. And now that monkey knife fight counts every single strike and not just significant strikes, it sort of blows the door off and opens things up quite a bit. So I am going to hit the more on the monkey knife fight line. And if you want to play this line, as you should, because you can triple your money, go to playmkf.com/WeWantPicks. Use promo code WWP. They will instantly match your deposit. So throw in $20. Put that $20 on the over, or the more. You'll triple it to win 60, and everybody's happy. Daniel, what are your thoughts here? And are you excited for the return of Yancy Medeiros?
Yeah, I am pumped for this fight. Honestly, on this fight, I've switched my mind back and forth, 15 times as to who I think is going to win. I was breaking down tape on both of them. They're both coming off a few losses, right? So they're going to be motivated to stay in the UFC. They're both tough as hell. They got chins. So I think we're going to see an exciting back and forth stand-up fight where both guys hit each other a lot. So I think this is going to be a good play for DraftKings on either side. So let's look at Medeiros. So guy's got, he's 15-7, like you said, his record. He's better than his record says, that's for sure. He's got 8 knockouts, 4 submissions. He's coming off 3 losses in a row. But those losses were to Lando Venata, who we saw last weekend is very, very good, Gregor Gillespie, who's a beast, and Donald Cerrone, who, again, this is a few years ago. That was when he was still, on his way up to fight for the title, I think. He also beat Alex Oliveira and Eric Silva before that. So he's beaten some very tough guys as well. Jacob said it. He's got that tough Hawaiian fighter mentality, very long reach, trained with the Diazes and Max Holloway. So the guy's always in good shape. He's got that long, lanky style that Max Holloway, long reach, just stay busy with the punches type style, keeps his hands down, but he's got good reflexes and counters, but he's still very hittable. He was hittable in the Venata fight. He's been hittable. He's really been hittable, throughout his career, which is why most of his fights are exciting. In that Venata fight, it was close. It was a weird fight because it was like everybody thought that was going to be the most exciting fight in the world, but we saw kind of a different side of both fighters. not a ton of action, very, very calculated on both sides. So he has shown the ability lately to kind of like scale back that craziness if he needs to. It didn't go in his favor in that fight, but it was not the slugfest I think everyone was hoping for. I went back to his Oliveira fight to see him kind of in a firefight, because I think that this is what this fight's going to be. I think it's going to be a firefight. Both guys were rocked in the first. Yancy got in way more trouble though, again, because I think he's more hittable than a lot of other guys. But I think coming out of it, you just realize he is tough as hell, and he's got a great chin. He ended up winning that fight, I think, in the second round. So all in all, I think Yancy Medeiros is very live in this one. But then we look at Damir Hadzovic. So he also lost his last two fights. Jacob, you talked about it against Moicano. He got taken down and submitted in like a minute. Moicano is an absolute beast, though. He gets that body lock and he subs people. Like, he is a very, very high level jiu-jitsu guy. But then we look at the fight before that against another tough guy, Giagos, who again we saw last weekend, looked really, really good. And Yancy was great in the striking exchanges, but the wrestling is what got to him. He got taken down, got his back taken in the first round. He was, he got up and was throwing heat, but Giagos was actually outstriking him a little bit too. But I think it was just one of those fights where the back and forth wrestling, the striking exchanges kind of get the best of you. So he lost that fight as well, but definitely showed again. He's got an awesome chin and very tough. So all in all, both of these guys are very, very good strikers, very tough, good chins. I think that's going to equal an exciting fight, a ton of DraftKings points. So you could really go both ways. Like, if you're doing multi-entry stuff, I'd probably have a little exposure to both of these guys. So I when I kind of break down who's got the edge where, I think the power edge in striking goes to Hadzovic a little bit, but I think the cardio and submission edge go to Medeiros. Slight wrestling edge to Hadzovic as well, I guess, but I don't think either of them are really going to wrestle all that much. And if Hadzovic does wrestle, that could get him subbed. So all in all, I think this could be fight of the night. I see Hadzovic winning early, and Medeiros probably getting in trouble because he's so hittable. But if he survives, I think he's going to take over later with cardio, volume shots, maybe even get a sub. So I'm going a slight edge to Medeiros on this, just with the cardio and the sub edge, but I think it's going to be a close war. And I do have Medeiros in my lineup too, because actually I had on my notes here, whoever's cheaper in DraftKings, that's who I'm taking. And Medeiros at $7,800, I think is a great value.
Yeah, I love him at that price. He's also in my lineup, and I agree. This will be a really fun fight. It should be fireworks, and I imagine it goes a long time. I'm very confident in this more and more. This is one of the more confident monkey knife fight plays I've seen. So as soon as these are live, I'm playing that one. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Josh Culibao versus Shahbazyan in what DraftKings is saying is an absolute blowout. The odds makers are saying it's pretty one-sided, and Monkey Knife Fight is saying one guy's going to be way busier than the other, or there's going to be a stoppage. It's an interesting matchup because I do think Shah has a chance to win this. He has a path to victory. Dan, you think he's a little more live than I do. What are your thoughts?
I was actually completely kidding. I think he's going to get destroyed in this fight. I don't even think it's close. I just wanted to see if you were going to start saying that he was, the favorite in this fight. No, so I did a little bit of I did a good amount of research on both these guys. So Shah Yilan making his UFC debut. He's 7-1 in his last 8 fights. I was like, wow, this guy's on a pretty good run. His only loss was to Zhu Rong, who we saw whatever it was a month ago. That guy looked pretty good, really good actually. And he fought 6 times in 2020. So this guy has been busy. He's been winning. I'm like, man, this guy looks like he's the real deal. And then I had noticed too, he beat Alexei Oleinik, and I was like, no way. And then it's just definitely a different Alexei Oleinik. So not even close to the guy that would probably kill him. Anyways, the guys he fought over the past year, I don't think any of them really had winning records. Yeah.
Complete bum. The last guy he beat was 3-6.
Right. So he had a very busy year getting that record padded. Probably working as hard as he can at that UFC Institute over in China. But from what I saw on tape, he looks like he's still at an amateur level. Very green. He's got some side-to-side head movement when he comes in. He's got a nice step off to the side when he jabs. He throws a couple big right hands. A couple fights ago against a guy, Nordebecki, he got taken down easily. He did go for a guillotine, but his wrestling did not look good from what I saw. He got out grappled, basically the whole first round. And then it just started getting sloppy. They were both transitioning back and forth. It was like, it was like an amateur fight. One guy gets mount, the other guy reverses, gets mount. They take each other's back all within one round. So, I'm sure he's improving. He's trying to get better, but I just don't see him being at the UFC level. He ended up winning that fight that I'm talking about, but probably because the other guy wasn't that great either. And in his first fight, he's got a tough test. So on paper, he's fighting Culibao, who's 0-1-1 in the UFC. But his last fight was a draw to Charles Jourdain, who's a good fighter. And his, fight before that was to Jalen Turner. He fights out of Australia, trains with Volkanovski. So, he's got good training partners. He's getting good rounds in. And he was a plus 375 underdog against Jourdain. And I thought, it was close. I thought that fight could have went either way. He dropped Jourdain in the first round. He's got good kicks, heavy kicks, body and head. He switches stances, good power. That first round, he smashed Jourdain's nose with a hook. He did go for some takedowns too. He didn't get them, but you can tell they're kind of in his arsenal. And then, I think as the fight went on, Jourdain, being a talented striker, took over, but he was at a minimum competitive. It was a closer fight than people thought it was going to be going into it. So I just think we're talking about two different caliber fighters here. Culibao should win this fight easily. I don't think it'll be close. I'd say he's not worth 9,100, but I'm going to put him in my lineup just based off of, how green I think Yilan is. And I think if Culibao is training and getting better with Volkanovski, this is a fight where he should come out and make a statement. So I'm hoping for a finish, but either way, I see a 3-round domination where he should get a bunch of points and justify the $9,100. So I'm going to play him in DraftKings. I would do more here. The only thing that would prevent that from happening would be if Culibao got an early stoppage, which could happen. But I think if they go 3 rounds, they'll both go over. So I think this will be a one-sided fight.
Yeah, and I made that comment because before we were recording, you were saying that, I don't know,
fell right into the trap.
I was like,
I
didn't fall into the trap. So my notes.
What do you mean you didn't fall into the trap? You literally led with
you hear him?
Hey, Dan, you're a big fan of this guy.
Notes.
You fell exactly into the trap.
Okay,
what are you talking
so
about?
my notes.
And then he tries saying, he's like, "Oh yeah, I said the line is too far off."
That's in my notes. I'm reading my notes right here. My notes are the odds are a bit far apart because I think Shah does have a path to victory. With the grappling.
He's going to with grappling.
Yeah, with grappling. There's a path. My point is there is a path to victory. He can grapple his way if he needs to get it done. He likes to trade inside the pocket. So Yilan will exchange. He'll throw short, hard punches inside the pocket, or he's looking for
3 and 6 fighters,
or he's looking for clinch style takedown. So there is
a banana peel. Somebody could throw a banana peel into the cage. And Culibao could slip on it. That could be another path to victory. You'd want to.
First of all, he's a perfect candidate for Jacob.
I'm jinxing us right now, by the way.
Yeah, so. you are. So I think Culibao wins. I actually think a solid bet would be an inside the distance prop bet on this fight. But I do think the odds are probably fine. The DraftKings money is what's really far apart. I think you might get more than $7,100 out of Yilan because he is willing to exchange. He can grapple. I don't have him in my lineup, and I wouldn't put him in my lineup, but I don't think, let's put it this way. The fight we broke down before, I think the Damir Ismagulov versus Rafael Alves is a much bigger beating than this is. But Jacob,
really, I disagree.
Absolutely. That's why I have Damir in my lineup and not Josh Culibao.
I would say the odds should be flopped on these two, to be honest.
So Jacob, I'm assuming you agree with Dan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and Dan mentioned that first loss by Josh. That was his UFC debut. And if you asked him about it, he said he literally came off the couch for that fight. Not like I was training, I was ready. He said I was on the couch, came off the couch and fought and still made it to the second round in his UFC debut. And Charles Jourdain, again, we have another lock of the week connection here because Charles Jourdain beat Marcelo Rojo, lock of the week. And then Josh almost beat Charles Jourdain, who beat a lock of the week.
All of your lock of the week references so far are your locks getting beaten.
Well, I mean, my lock of the week won. Thiago Moises won the lock of the week. He won when he was.
And
lock
how
of the
did
week.
Rojo do?
He would have won a decision if it went to a decision. So
Angelo,
John,
don't get into the semantics. All right. The bottom line is this is MMA. There's now a new term for MMA math. It's called lock of the week math. All right. You back out how this guy will win because somehow he affected Jacob's lock of the week.
Right. And I think that Josh would struggle versus somebody with power, but I don't see a lot of power in Shah. And I like the way Josh fights too, because he seems like a very intelligent fighter, and he'll work for takedowns too. He's not a great wrestler, but he'll work for takedowns and push guys against the fence and really work that angle. So I have him highlighted because he's not in my lineup, but if something drops, he will be in my lineup. The $9,100 just with his fight style. I don't think he's going to score a ton. But if there is a fight that drops, he's going to work his way into my lineup. So I like him to win the fight. And I like probably more on this.
I'm literally spending my $9,100 against Shah Yilan as opposed to more.
Yeah, you guys tried to, I didn't listen to you guys before that previous fight card when they had 5 of those Chinese fighters, and you guys said that their records are padded. And I got burned with the lock of the week, and I think they went 0-5 on that.
They all
card.
lost.
They all lost.
No, there were a couple that looked good and won, but
one looked really good. He still lost.
Yeah, they still lost. They all lost.
What about
they all lost.
They did. Every single one of them. Dan, there's nothing to look.
There's one that I won. I'm gonna look it up now.
It was on the Wei Lee Rose card, and every single person lost, including Wei Lee. They all lost.
We will revisit this shortly, guys. I think.
Okay. Correct us in the comments. And by us, I mean Dan and Jacob. I appreciate the haircut. I appreciate the beard shave. You look fantastic, man. Good for you. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Bruno Silva versus Victor Rodriguez, another $9,000 plus fighter that I do think is worth the money. I'm a big Bruno Silva fan. I think he wins by stoppage. He is in my lineup, and I think these odds are pretty correct. And the strike line is tricky because instincts say more, but I don't think it goes long enough for Bruno Silva to get 52.5 strikes. So that line is tricky to me, but I think this is brutal. I think Bruno Silva comes out there. I think he looks fantastic. He has solid power, strong wrestling, nasty submissions. He's good everywhere. He was on a little bit of a skid. And then in his last fight, he looked absolutely amazing. Victor Rodriguez is young in his career. He's only has, and you'll see different records on different sites. He's got like 8 or 9 fights, which is not a lot. He used to be a 145 pounder. He's worked his way down to 125. So for this weight class, he's going to be a little bigger, but he's not a large person at all. And I have no idea what that weight cut does for him. And, when he loses, he gets finished. So I just think Bruno Silva has the experience, has the skills everywhere. I think Bruno Silva gets this done. I didn't even let you guys go before I do like I usually do because I'm so incredibly confident in this. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. I think, I was looking at Victor. First of all, I saw Bruno Silva. I was like, my man, I made a ton of money off him when he fought against JP Bays.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. We went against
your
JP
research,
Bays.
Angelo, huh?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Said you did your research.
He's calling you out for not remembering that he fought JP Bays last fight. Anyways, Bruno Silva, that's my dog. He made me a ton of. I think I hit him inside the distance. I made like 3 or 4 different bets that I cashed on with him, and he was an underdog in that fight. And everybody was talking about Bays and his wrestling and this and that. And I was watching the tape on Silva, and he had like 2 or 3 losses in a row. But man, a couple of them I thought he won, split decisions, and a couple of them were short notice. And he looked very good in every single one of them. Good wrestling, good takedown defense, powerful striking, good like. He looks like a very good fighter. So his record does not match how good. 11-5. He is way better than an 11-5 fighter. So anyways, then I looked at Victor Rodriguez to see kind of what we're dealing with. And, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He fought on the regional scene in Alaska, it looks like, before that. His last fight, he got head kick KO'd in like 2 minutes by Adrian Yanez, who's very good. But he took the fight on 11 days notice, so I think the UFC owes him one. They're clearly not doing him any favors with this matchup. But in the tape that I watched from him, he went for takedowns right off the bat against Yanez. But he did throw some heavy shots. I will say Rodriguez does have a little bit of power in his hands. He wings some shots. They're not like he's definitely lacking in skills compared to Bruno Silva, but he does have some punches that I think could hurt people. I don't think it's going to happen in this fight, but it's not like he has zero path to victory. He does have some heavy shots. He did not look technical, but again, powerful. His footwork is very awkward. I went back to a couple fights ago on one of the regional scenes in Alaska, and he was basically brawling against another guy, just getting the better of the exchanges in the brawl. Hurt the guy a couple times, bunch of haymakers, good left. He got taken down easily, made it to the second round, and he was still throwing heat, so he probably will come in shape for this fight. And he definitely had a good chin from what I saw. So, I don't know. It could be a little bit more exciting than people are kind of giving it credit for, but I think Bruno Silva is going to dominate this guy, and I've got him winning it inside the distance by really any way he wants. I think he can knock him out. I think he could submit him. I just think he's a much better fighter overall over Rodriguez.
Yeah, no surprises there. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Victor's UFC debut against Yanez, he was just completely overwhelmed by the volume, the power, everything. And like you guys said, it's not going to get any easier for him in this fight. Bruno Silva does have speed. He does have the volume. He does have the power. I don't trust him enough to put him in my lineup because you never know. Victor's never seen a decision, both in wins and losses. So there's a chance that he can catch Silva. I just don't trust Bruno enough to put him in my lineup, but I think he definitely should win the fight. I just don't trust him enough to have him in my lineup. So,
yeah, I have him, but like Dan said, Victor Rodriguez does have some power, and anything's possible. But these are lighter guys. With that being said, Victor's either going to look amazing at 125 because he's going to be massive, or he's going to be so sucked out because he's gone down 20 pounds. You're 145 pounds. You don't have that much weight to lose, and he still sucked 20 pounds to come down to 125. So I don't know what he's going to look like here. He may be an absolute giant and keep his cardio and look like an animal. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty high on Bruno Silva, but he is in my lineup. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Court McGee versus Claudio Silva. I can't believe Court McGee is still fighting. He's been around forever. He is like the Matt Brown of the welterweight. Actually, Matt Brown's also a welterweight. So he's like Matt Brown. He's impossible to put away. He's been fighting for 100 years. Decent at everything, not amazing at anything other than toughness. I am surprised this is a pick'em fight. Genuinely surprised this is a pick'em fight. I think Court McGee actually wins. I think this is a great matchup for him. I think Court McGee can win this fight, and I was praying and hoping that he would be a big-time underdog because he should be. But I genuinely think he wins. Before I tell you why and how, I'll let Jacob go because he's shaking his head.
Yeah. Silva should be a 3-1 favorite in my mind. You said Court is very good. He's a very good punching bag. He hasn't finished anyone in like 10 years. I like Silva in this fight. I think he's going to use his grappling, get on top. If you watch his fight versus Leon Edwards too, I mean, Leon Edwards is like the darling of the division now, and he beat Leon Edwards and like full mounted, just beating the crap out of him. I think he does the same thing in this fight. He's in my lineup, and I would take I think it's the first one. I would take the less for Court and the more for Silva for this, because I think Court's on his back, struggling to breathe, for 3 rounds.
So I think Court McGee. So I'm not playing either one of these in DraftKings, and neither one of these guys are in my lineup. If Court was like $7,000, $6,000, sure, but $8,000. He is old. He does get beat up when he loses, and he's not great anywhere. He's good everywhere, but he's not great anywhere. So I don't like him at these odds. I don't like him at this DraftKings price. With that being said, I guarantee these odds will move, and when they do, I'll put a money line on Court. I just think it's an interesting matchup. So Claudio Silva, he's a very good grappler. He throws heavy punches to absolutely charge forward and grapple at all costs, right? Sometimes they're sloppy and they're with reckless abandon just to get in there and shoot his takedowns and try to get that down. And when he can do that, he looks good. When he can't do that, he has no backup plan. There is no backup plan for Claudio Silva.
He doesn't need one.
Okay. There is no, I couldn't get the takedown. Let me keep this striking. It's not there. He's just going to keep diving for legs or shoving against the cage and trying to make that happen. Court McGee, his record is deceiving. That's not a great record, but he has been around forever. He's had many highs and lows, and he's fought some of the, Yancy Medeiros-esque, where his losses are to good people. There's not many nonsense losses in there. He's tough as hell. And when he loses, it's usually he's a little slower, a little less accurate. Like he's always a little worse than everybody else, but he has solid takedown defense. He has a chin from hell, and he has no quit in him whatsoever. I think Claudio Silva's sort of nonstop attempts at grappling, and if they don't work, he will get desperate. He'll throw those big desperate bombs to try to get in on legs, and Court McGee will be there, ready, composed, and just light up Claudio Silva. Defend the takedown, light him up. Defend the takedown, light him up. And I think Court McGee can win this fight. I was hoping he was a bigger underdog because he should be. I agree with you, Jacob. I think the odds, it should be 3-1. But no matter what, I think matchup-wise, it's good for Court McGee because, again, Claudio Silva has sloppy, ridiculous striking just to set up grappling, and Court McGee's got solid takedown defense and a crazy chin, very similar to Matt Brown. Daniel, are you going to split the difference, or are you going one way or the other?
So this is one of those ones where I just got a feeling. So breaking down the tape, I basically agree with everything you said, Angelo. Court McGee's 36 years old. He's won 5 in his last 6. And to your point, he's been in every fight, but he's always just a step behind, right? The Condit fight, he was in it. Exchange, he was just a step behind. But man, something about Silva, I don't know what it is. His fight against James Krause, where let's first talk about him as a person. He's 38 years old, right? So he's got that kind of going against him, right? That's around the age where things start slowing down a bit. You already said it. He basically just throws heavy kicks and haymakers, wild and sloppy, and shoots for takedowns from 10 feet away if he needs to. So he definitely wants to get on the ground, but his wrestling is not there. But something about that fight against James Krause, where he was getting pieced up early, and I think Krause did hurt his knee at one point from one of Silva's kicks, by the way.
And you're talking about that was his first loss in 15 years. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm about to say something positive about him, Jacob. Okay. Settle down.
He is on edge. You need a drink. It's a Tuesday night, buddy. But have a drink.
Calm down there, big feller. I'm about to literally circle back. I'm just building. I'm building into it, Jacob. Don't worry.
He's rounding the corner.
Rounding the corner here. All right. So anyways, the fact that he was able to fight James Krause, who I think is one of the, again, I think it was short notice for Krause too. But anyways, by the end of that fight, he wasn't going away. He was getting pieced up early, but he kept coming forward and landing big shots. And there were a couple of times where he landed some clean, heavy shots with that awkward haymaker style. He did get a takedown early on at one point, so he wasn't close to getting him towards the end. But I don't know. He just has like this zombie-ish type approach where it's just haymaker, kick, takedown, and he'll just take the shots and keep doing it over and over until, if he does get one, McGee can end up in trouble. So, I kind of agree with you, Angelo. I think McGee should win this fight based on skill sets and toughness, but something about me just feels like Silva will get him down, and it could be trouble for McGee. So I don't even know who my official pick is. I guess I'll go, you know what? I'm going with Jacob. Claudio Silva is my pick, and I'm not touching it in DraftKings because it's coin flip.
I think the one prop bet I'll make on this one is it goes to the distance, because like I said, Court McGee hasn't finished anyone in 10 years, but he hasn't been finished in 5 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I don't see too many prop bets where you don't have to pick a person though.
Wait, so Jacob, you think Silva's going to win a decision?
Yeah, I think he just dominates him. Fight.
Takes him down. You think he did take him down?
Yeah, I think he just dominates the entire fight. There might be even a 10-8 round in there. I mean, if you watch what he did to Leon Edwards, it's like literally like a full mount just beating the crap out of him. And I mean, that was a few years ago, but Jesus, man, I feel bad for Court McGee, honestly.
Wow.
That's quite the life, man. Him and Matt Brown are basically the same person. They had very similar lives.
He's like 2-6 in his last 8 fights, too. It's not like he's like hanging in there. He's like he's just a punching bag. He's just a punching bag.
The reason I think Court McGee can win this is literally the matchup. He doesn't go away.
But how do you think he
striker with good takedown defense, decent takedown defense.
You keep saying that he's going to like hang in there, but how do you think he's going to win? Do you think he's going to knock him out, or do you think he's going to win a decision?
I think he's going to win a decision. Yeah, I think he's going to defend the takedowns and win all the striking exchanges. Claudio Silva's striking is horrific. He's like head down throwing wild punches.
Some of them are heavy though.
He's got he's got power, but it doesn't matter with Court McGee. At least not now. It might matter in a week. But that's, it just doesn't matter. So anyway, the monkey knife fight line, this is a tricky one. I say tricky all the time, so start drinking. The 62.5, if it goes my way, this is a good line, right? He's going to defend the takedowns, piece him up, defend the takedown, piece him up. But if it goes Jacob's way, no way Court McGee hits 62.5. So I think the more on Bruno Silva, the more on Claudio, I'm pretty confident in. The more on Court is that's a harder play. But if you want to play it and you're confident in one of these, go to playmkf.com/WeWantPicks and use promo code WWP, and they will instantly match your deposit. Throw in $20. They'll give you a free 20. Take the free 20, play one of these lines, and if you hit it, you'll triple your money. You'll get 60 plus your original 20. You'll have $80. All you did was deposit 20. Check it out. Play one of these lines and let us know in the comments if you're going to do the more or the less on Court McGee in this fight. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Big Ben Rothwell versus Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett, this is last minute. They just, we filmed this on Tuesday. I think they announced on Sunday that Chris Barnett got the call. I know Chris Barnett. I spent some time with him. He was in the XFC forever. I spent a ton of time with the XFC. I ran their tryouts. Nick Newell fought in the XFC. Parker Porter fought in the XFC. Ryan Quinn fought in the XFC. I spent a ton of time with them at multiple events. So I spent a lot of time with Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett is a funny, cool dude, stupid athletic. You look at him, and if you don't know anything about him, didn't look at any of his fights, you'd say, oh, he's a short slob because he's like 5'9". He's very heavy. He may actually miss weight for this fight. And you would just assume he's a bum. He's stupid athletic. Like, looking the way he looks, he's doing backflips, wild spinning kicks, doing crazy things, and he does it very smoothly. He's got legitimate power in his hands. And if you look at his pro debut, it was like his pro debut or his second fight ever. he fought, I forget the dude's name, had like 55 fights and he knocked him out. I mean, Chris Barnett has a ton of talent, but unfortunately not the dedication. He lets his weight get away from him. And I know he doesn't make enough money fighting to just dedicate his entire life to it. So he's doing multiple things at once. He's an awesome talent. I'm very happy for him that he got his call and he got his shot to go into the UFC. And you know how it goes. You do the UFC a favor, they'll do you a favor. So he'll definitely get another fight after this. I just don't see how he can win this fight in any way. He's got power, but I don't care. It's Ben Rothwell. He's not going to take down Ben Rothwell. He's not going to outstrike Ben Rothwell. Like, I just don't see how he could possibly beat big Ben Rothwell. But Jacob, I'll let
one thing real quick, Angelo, Jacob, before you go. Just, he was supposed to fight next week in the XFC. So might not be such a short notice gig for him.
Sure. And I know, and that is a very valid point. And I know behind the scenes, there was a bunch of back and forth to get him to release to fight this. They didn't want to let him go originally. And then I think they realized that's a real bad look. You'll never get a talented fighter to fight for your promotion again if you don't let him use the UFC clause. I mean, that's why those things exist.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a valid point. I still think he doesn't.
He's not training anyways.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
So they're all short notice.
Yeah. So Jacob, what are your thoughts here? As you don't know who Chris is, but you did some research. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, if they're all short notice, then he's even better athlete than you even say he is, because he's 21-6, and if he's not training that hard, he's only been he fights like a super heavyweight. He's listed at like 287 pounds. He's only been knocked out twice, in 27 fights, which is still that's the craziest stat of them all. You would think that 6 losses the way he fights would be 6 KOs. He's only been knocked out twice. And you don't think he can beat Ben Rothwell. You don't see how he can do it. He can do it with that right hand. When he throws that right hand, that's like the fastest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he just up, boom. He throws it like a flyweight with heavyweight power. It's crazy at how athletic he is. In one of the fights, he was trying to throw like this switch kick. I mean, like you said, he's just crazy athletic. I think he wins the fight. He was going to be my lock of the week. I don't trust him enough. I had him in my lineup before, but I just don't trust me enough to put him in there like that, because it is Ben Rothwell, and Ben Rothwell is very, very tough. But you don't think you can take him down either. There was one fight where the guy from his credentials said that he was a Sambo champion, and Chris took him down and kept him down. Like it was no issue at all. I mean, it was crazy. So I think that Chris wins this fight. I'll definitely put some prop bets on him to get the KO finish. I don't trust him enough to put him in my DraftKings lineup, but and this is definitely one where I think it's just going to be, I don't know. Because Chris too, you think he's a big guy, but I think he doesn't have like cardio issues. Obviously he gets tired late, but it's not like he gets,
he doesn't like completely collapse on himself.
I mean, and he's still, I saw third rounds where he comes up with that right hand with just as much speed as in the first round. So, the strikes, I'll probably stay away from the strikes because, with heavyweights, you never really know. Yeah. But I think Chris wins the fight.
I would love if he wins. I really would. Like he's a cool dude. And I watched him. I don't know when was I doing that stuff with the XFC? Like we're going on 10 years. So he's been around for a while. And the one thing that stuck out is how athletic he is. You're right. He's got a ton of power. I just think stylistically, I think Ben Rothwell, he's just a giant sloth. Like we've talked about, he's just so massive and just slows the pace of everything down. I think he just smothers Chris. I don't think he gives Chris any distance. I think he just comes forward, absorbs whatever comes his way, holds Chris against the cage, and is just a boring beat him up fight. I think it's almost a guaranteed win, but I did not put Ben Rothwell in my lineup, not because I think, he could get caught, more because I just don't think he's going to score a lot of points. I think he just holds Chris either on the mat or against the cage for 15 minutes.
I think I'm more looking forward to the face-off than the fight, because Ben Rothwell is 6'4", and Chris is listed at 5'9", 280. He's not
a large person. No,
287 pounds at 5'9". So you're going to see this face-off and be like, "What the hell is going on here?" It's going to look like a pride fight or something.
Yeah, and he looks super sloppy too.
He must eat Angelo, you and him at the dinner table. I don't even know.
I have the gift of height, thank God. Stretch it all out.
Oh man.
Well, what's your thoughts, Daniel?
Oh, I mean,
you made a fat joke about me, and then you just faded off.
I mean, I wasn't even saying a fat joke.
Okay.
I like to eat. Gee, you're so sensitive over there. No, I mean, I listen. I think first of all, I'm kind of rooting for him a little bit. Just kind of looking at. I was like looking at his record. I'm like, geez, this guy did grappling matches against Yoel Romero. He's doing kickboxing matches. He's just like.
He'll do
I don't
whatever.
even want to call him a journeyman, but like he's like just a gamer. It seems like he's just like, all right, I'll do it, you know. And then I watched a few of his fights. He's fun. He's exciting. He's doing crazy things. He's definitely athletic, like you said. You would never think it just seeing the amount of weight that he carries around on that short body. It's crazy how athletic he is. But you know, I will say all of his recent opponents had kind of. Not a ton of experience or losing records. So, you know, there is a reason probably why he's 21-6. With that being said, it's heavyweight. Anybody can win with a knockout punch at any point. The only reason I don't think he's as live as I hope that he would be, or kind of like I'm rooting for, is Ben Rothwell has had 50 something fights. He has 4 TKOs on his record, and I think the last one was like in 2009. So he is not an easy guy to put away with punches. Not saying Chris Barnett can't do it, but Angela, I kind of agree with you. I think Rothwell is gonna take a couple shots, give a couple shots, push him up against the cage, make it one of those grind type fights where he's always just doing a little bit more, getting the forward pressure. You know, if he does get a takedown, I think he can finish the fight, probably submit him or land, you know, some ground and pound. But I just think overall he's the better fighter. He should win, but I'm not touching it for DraftKings. I'm not betting on it unless there's some crazy out I want to take a stab at. You know, you just never know what you're going to get. Could be a KO in 1 minute, or it could be a hug fest for 15 minutes. So not touching it, but I think Barnett should win the fight.
Yeah, I'd put first of all, I'm rooting for Chris big time. I'd go the Jacob route and throw take a look at a Barnett by KO prop bet, see what that looks like. That could be a fun one.
I'm gonna look that up right now. If Jacob's doing it, I'm doing it. I'm learning, you know.
Well, so either way, I'm looking forward to it because I know Chris, but I do not expect this to be the most exciting fight of the night. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Ricardo Ramos versus Bill Algeo in a fight that has been rebooked. This was originally on the Whitaker Gastelum card. It's been rebooked. We have it here. We already did a perfectly good breakdown. So let's watch that. Next up at UFC Vegas 24, we have Ricardo Ramos versus Bill Algeo in an absolute barn burner. This is an absolute barn burner of a fight. And this is one of the very few times you will see the odds makers and DraftKings disagree. It's a very slight disagreement, but DraftKings says Ramos is the favorite. The odds makers say Algeo is the favorite. And that's just how close this is. It is razor thin. Nobody knows what direction to go here. I do. I'm positive. But what about you, Jacob? Why don't you tell us your incorrect pick?
I also know that this is going to be the fight of the night. I think this is absolutely easily going to be the fight of the night. Obviously, if we don't know if Gastelum shows up, the main event definitely could be, but I think this is easily the fight of the night. Ricardo Ramos is an absolute animal. That guy is just relentless with his takedowns. It's crazy. And even on the takedowns, if something happens, which is kind of alluding to what might happen in this fight, his scrambles are incredible. It always feels like he's the aggressive one and the one that always ends up in the better position. Bill Algeo, I just don't see that same kind of tenacity. I think he's a little bit cleaner. I think in this fight, everywhere, he's going to be just a step behind. I think in stand-up, he's a step behind. I think in the grappling, I think he's just not quick enough. I think he's a step behind. I don't like that. It seems in his stand-up, in Algeo's stand-up, it seems like he loves throwing kicks, which I think is going to be a recipe for disaster against someone as aggressive as Ramos. He's going to grab a leg, he's going to run through it, and you're going to be on your back. And Ramos, he works to finish fights. I think in his 14 wins, only 4 decisions. There's a lot of, and usually those smaller guys, they don't get the big knockouts. So a lot of finishes when you're at that smaller weight is very, very impressive. So I also don't like the way Algeo reacts to feints and his head movement. It seems like he gets hit a lot. I don't think Ricardo Ramos is going to strike a whole bunch. I think he's just going to work for takedown. But if he has to, I think there's opportunities there for Bill to get knocked out. So I think there's a lot of ways that Ricardo could win. And originally, he was my lock of the week. This was my original lock of the week. There was going to be a lot of let me talk. There was going to be a lot of controversy behind it because he is the DraftKings favorite, but he is an underdog. Some books have him as a plus 115. So technically, he was going to be the underdog. So it would have worked for lock of the week, but I knew the backlash I was going to receive. So I had to go all in with Burchak. But Ramos, I feel very comfortable with him to be able to dominate this fight. Lots and lots and lots of takedowns. So he's in my lineup. I think this is definitely still going to be the fight of the night. And I have Ricardo Ramos backup lock of the week.
Yeah, man, it's almost like you read the notes with the wrong fighter on top, because my feedback is that Bill Algeo is relentless, just relentless. And he wants a dirty, ugly fight and just grind it out and make it happen. And with Ricardo Ramos's flashy, spinny nonsense, I think that could get him in trouble because he wants to dictate the pace. He wants to do the flashy spin stuff. And with Algeo just getting in there, keeping it dirty, staying in the pocket, and not letting him have his distance to do all the crap he wants to do, I think that'll be a problem for Ramos. So I think Algeo is the pick here. He is in my DraftKings lineup, $8,000 and 8,200. Whatever side you are on this fight, those are great prices for these guys, whatever side you're on, because they're both going to be busy as hell. It's going to be high volume output, and whichever one wins is going to score a ton of points, and the loser is going to do pretty well too, I imagine. But that's where I'm going, man. I think Bill Algeo wins, and I think it's because it's a dirty, gross, grimy fight. And I think Ramos may have issues with that kind of fight when he wants the distance to spin around and do all his fancy dance moves.
Come on, Dan.
I mean, I'll be honest on this fight. I mean, I know we have to make a pick, so I'm going to make a pick. This is a very, very close fight. I feel like it's a must play for DraftKings. You're getting either guy basically the same price, $8,000 or $8,200. It's going to be a ton of actions, scrambles. It's going to be everything. So I'm going to build my lineup and make sure there's around $8,000 or $8,200 left. And whoever I can afford will go in it. But my pick is going to, I got to go Ramos because my man Jake over here, he's got the lock of the week going for 35 weeks in a row, right? Isn't that right? 35 weeks.
We just forget the losses, like they don't happen.
It's 47 weeks in a row.
We covered this, Angelo. The loss didn't count because he beat a previous person that lost to a lock of the week. That means that he won the lock of the week. All right. We've gone over this a bunch of times. He's undefeated 47 weeks in a row. No, I think this is just going to be a crazy fight. I really actually I started watching some tape on these guys. I'm like, man, this is really tough to call. So I'm going to dig in throughout the week and really watch some more video of some previous fights and matchups. And, but I don't think you can go wrong either way. Cause I guess there could be a finish, but I think there's going to be a ton of points in a 3-round war is what I see in this fight. So,
let us know who
taking Ramos for now, and we'll see who fits in.
Let us know who you guys think wins. I'll throw a poll up on this one because this to me is the tightest one on the entire card. A lot of good matchups, a lot of close matchups. This one's this one's crazy to pick. Nick, who's not here because he's training for a fight that we can't announce just yet. He picked who the hell did he pick?
Ramos.
He picked Algeo. So Nick went with Algeo. So we're split right down the middle, just like DraftKings and the odd makers.
Banana split.
It's a tricky one. I don't know what that was. It's a very tricky one. I'll put a poll up. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. And then, when we do our final breakdown videos and our bets and stuff like that, we'll see if any of us have changed after we watch the weigh-ins. So guys, did your opinions change? What is interesting is the odds makers and DraftKings made Bill Algeo an even bigger favorite than he was the first time. It was much closer to a pick 'em the first time. Now, Bill Algeo, they added a couple $100 to his price tag, and DraftKings thinks Ricardo Ramos is not as good as they originally thought. I'll tell you right now, I had Algeo, but with the shift in price in DraftKings, I think Ricardo Ramos is a great buy. I think, he's a dynamic striker on his feet. He's great on the ground. He throws lots of crazy stuff. He's all over the place, but he has power and he gets takedowns, and he is a high-level BJJ guy. $7,700 with somebody that has that dynamic of striking, is that dangerous on the ground, I'll take it. If these prices were even, or the prices last time, I think Bill Algeo is probably a little better everywhere. He's got really good cardio. He's crazy durable, and he stays in people's faces. But again, now that this gap is so wide on the DraftKings price, I think Ricardo Ramos makes more sense to put in your lineup than Bill Algeo, because this fight is going to be awesome and it's going to be crazy close. Daniel, what is your pick? Or has your pick changed? I guess we saw what your pick was. Has it changed?
I don't really remember what I said the first time around, but I did relook at this one. So I'm going with Ramos. I agree from a DraftKings standpoint. $7,700. That's a great value in what's going to be a close fight. I think it's going to be very competitive. They match up pretty evenly. I give the slight striking edge to Ramos. I think on the ground it could be a toss-up. I'm trying to find out their credentials in jiu-jitsu. I'll probably do that over the next couple of days to see who's technically the better jiu-jitsu guy. But, I would say they're both very, very good on the ground. They probably won't sub each other unless someone makes a big mistake. I think it's going to be a ton of scrambles, transitions. To be honest, the old DraftKings rules would have been bank, because I think they're going to be all over the place on the ground, scrambling, getting up, punching, back on the ground. But yeah, I'm going to go with Ramos in this one, mainly because I think he's fought the tougher competition. He's got 7 UFC fights. He's 5-2. I think that means something. Algeo has how many UFC fights here? I think only a couple. He's 1-1 in the UFC. So that was kind of the edge that I think Ramos has, just more UFC experience, and more wins against UFC caliber opponents.
Jacob, you went with Ramos. We just watched that breakdown. You going with Ramos again?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because last breakdown, I almost made him my lock of the week, and all of a sudden Angelo's flipped sides from Algeo to Ramos. And I got lucky this time because last time I didn't make him my lock of the week because the odds were so close. Now he's definitely the underdog. So now he is the lock of the week. We're going for 4.
Wow.
One that we can get behind.
And I think this is, we said last time that it was going to be the fight of the night on that card. I think on this card, it might not be because there's some great matchups on this card. But I think it's definitely going to be up there as one of the better fights. It's going to be close. But I think that Ricardo is better everywhere and gets the job done. So I'm going for 4 in a row. We got screwed last week with the decision, so we're counting it as a win. So we're going 4 in a row, lock of the week, Ricardo Ramos.
Yeah, I bust your balls with the
I think Angelo should not be allowed to pick him because A, he didn't pick him the first round, and B,
the best part about
lock of the week. That's ridiculous. He's totally
the best part about bandwagon. My breakdown last time. I gave a complete breakdown about Ricardo, and Angelo looked at me and said, "I think you just gave a great breakdown."
Yeah, that's exactly what I said, dude.
I think you.
What I just said right now is I'm picking Ricardo Ramos because the price shifted. If they were even money or the DraftKings prices were the same, I'm going with Bill Algeo. I think Bill Algeo is a little better everywhere.
Last time you picked Bill Algeo to win the fight, and now you're picking Ricardo to win the fight. Nothing's changed about that.
I just said I think Bill Algeo is a little better everywhere, and I'm picking based off of DraftKings because the fight
Who do you
is
think
almost
wins the fight?
Tensions are running high tonight, folks.
Yeah, Jacob's in a trash mood. He's already nervous about his lock of the week. Who do you think wins the fight? I think it's a solid lock of the week. I think Bill Algeo wins the fight, but it's so razor thin that what I am confident in is that at $7,700, Ricardo Ramos is a great DraftKings pick.
Oh,
but I think Bill Algeo is a little bit better everywhere.
I think if people watch the old video and then watch this one, they'll be very confused with your
There's nothing to be confused about. I said I'm going with Ramos because everything shifted. So with the shift,
break it up. Back to your corners.
Anyway, before we move on, Jacob, I don't know if you guys know this. He's in a trash mood. Cheer him up in the comments. Tell him he's pretty. You like his haircut or something. This kid's got to figure it out. What I do find very interesting is the significant, or not significant anymore, just regular strike line with Monkey Knife Fight. That is a giant gap. And man, if this is a barn burner, they'll hit the more and more, but 84.5 is a lot of strikes in a 3-round fight, especially when there will be grappling in the mix. So very quickly before we move on, I think we're all good with the more on Ramos. Are you guys good with the more or the less on Algeo?
I'm going to go less just because it's so high, even though I do think there's going to be a ton of volume, but I think Ramos is going to win. So I can't imagine where, I don't know, they both score over 85. So I think it's going to be, a close fight where Algeo might get 65, 70, and Ramos might get around the same, but I'm going more or less. What
about you, Jake?
Ramos dominates this fight. It's more or less dominates.
Yeah, I think more or less is the play. I think it's closer than you guys do, but I think more or less is the play for sure. 84.5 strikes is a lot of strikes. This will be a firefight. I think this will be super close, but I think the wrestling exchanges will slow down some of those strikes. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have a rebooked Jack Hermansson versus Edmen Shahbazyan. I always say Shaboy, like Sheboygan. Shahbazyan. This was supposed to be last week, but somebody in Jack Hermansson's team tested positive for COVID, not Jack. So they just bumped this an entire week to make sure Jack was clean. Jacob, I will go to you first, but we have a striker versus grappler matchup. And what you will notice is that in the Monkey Knife Fight line, the grappler is supposed to get more strikes. And that's because they moved from significant strikes to just total strikes. So the logic here is Hermansson gets on top. He's the one landing strikes. Every single one counts, whether it's significant or not. So his line's higher than Edmen, who would have to keep it on his feet to score more. So Jacob, what are your thoughts here? How do you see this going?
Yeah, I think everyone sees this going the way the Derek Brunson fight went for Edmen. I think everyone thinks that, Jack is going to grab him, get on top, and dominate the way Brunson did because, Edmen was really just kind of blowing through people. And he's only 23 years old, which is crazy. He does not fight like a 23-year-old. He's very poised and a very good fighter. And I think he had like 10 first-round finishes going into the Brunson fight. And if you actually watch that Brunson fight, he was landing those shots that was dropping people before. He was landing good shots on Brunson in the first round. So I think he's going to get the shots that he needs to finish the fight early. Whether they work or not is we'll see. Yeah, so I think we're really going to find out Edmen when he is in the face of adversity, because he saw him against Derek Brunson. That got ugly there, but he didn't give up, and I think he goes back home and we're going to find out, does he work harder and is ready for those firefights, because Jack's going to come and he's going to get taken down and he's going to be on his back at some point in this fight. And does the same thing happen? Did he work on his game? He is young. So, Dan's mentioned before, those young fighters seem to learn pretty fast. Jack last week, I think he was going to make it in my lineup, but after I started watching a little bit more stuff, I think Edmen is still game for those first round knockouts. I mentioned before, he was hitting Brunson with the shots that knocked people out. So I stayed away from Jack in my DraftKings lineup. I don't have Edmen in it, but I think it's $7,300. If you want to take a flyer, I mean, Dan's mentioned before with multi-entry, if you want to chase a first round stoppage, I think Edmen can find his way into your lineup. So I definitely like the more and more on this, because he's going to end up on his back at one point, but I got to imagine he's going to get the strikes off before that, knowing that Jack wants to grapple on this fight. So I like Edmen. I think I'm definitely still going to place a prop bet on like a first round finish, because he finds a way to get those shots in, and 10 out of 11 first rounds. You got to put some money on that. So I think Jack should dominate this fight, but Edmen's very, very live.
Yeah, I agree with literally all of that. I do think Jack Hermansson wins this fight. I think the grappling is too much. The Derek Brunson fight, it's really the only reference point we have. But I think Jack Hermansson is better than Derek Brunson. So I imagine it would go even better for him, right? I don't think his striking is as good as Derek Brunson's, but his grappling is far better. Derek Brunson just became a grappler recently. So anyway, I think Jack Hermansson sort of has his way with Edmen, but certainly Edmen has the power to get it done early or even late if he keeps his composure. I just don't know if he'll keep his composure. That will be the interesting part because, you know, he is super young. He hasn't been in those spots very often. And, you know, I imagine he'll get very frustrated. Jack Hermansson is relentless on top. He's very busy. He's very smothery. It's got to be incredibly frustrating with Jack Hermansson on top because he won't even try to engage with you at all. Where Derek Brunson will engage. He's a striker. He'll strike with you and then he'll grapple. So I think it's just super frustrating for Edmen. I don't think he gets sort of any rhythm, but I will say I talked to Nick Newell earlier. He's normally on our show. He's not on now because he's training for a fight in 3 weeks for Bellator. So he needs to focus on that. He agrees, Jacob, that Edmen is very live. He said, people don't think Shahbazyan's as good as he is. He's fantastic. He's got power. He's got speed. I like Shahbazyan a lot in this fight. So he likes him as well. I don't think he went as far as to draft him, but he does like him because I think it's either feast or famine if you have him in your lineup. He either knocks Hermansson out or is on his back the entire time. He scores no points or 100. There's nothing in between. He's not going to score 40 or 50 in a loss. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
No, I really agree with kind of both of you guys. I mean, this for me is like a wait and see type fight. Like I'm not touching it in DraftKings. If I do a bet, it'll be on I'll find some crazy odds on something, probably leaning towards Shahbazyan because I agree. It comes down to what he's done in the off time between his last fight, right? He's super young. He's 23 years old. So you got to imagine after that last loss, he's like, okay, I know what I need to work on. And we're going to find out if he did it. If I were him, I'd be practicing wrestling defense and conditioning, that sort of grind of training for the last 6 months. So if he's done that, we could see a totally different fighter in this fight. He certainly has the power. He certainly has the striking skills. He just needs to add that other component, which,
well, what makes it interesting as well, and I'm going to talk myself out of my pick here, is Shahbazyan's got good takedown defense. And Jack Hermansson, his takedowns are good, but he doesn't keep people down. People get up on him. People scramble back up while he is dominant on top because he's busy and he's active and he's always looking for something and working something. If you watch his fights, people do get up. He takes them right back down, which is great for DraftKings. But if Edmen keeps his composure, can defend a few takedowns, hit Jack on the way in, get up from a few takedowns, hit him on the way in again, you know, that's going to add up over time and he will catch him. But I do think Jack too
is only 1-2 in his last 3 fights. And the one win was like that weird heel hook on Gastelum where, you know, who knows if that fight goes, you know, the whole rounds, what that ends up like. So it's not like he's like a complete dominant fighter either coming in this fight that's just been dominating everyone. So
he's tricky. Hermansson's he's not a wrestler either too. That's like going to shoot in on your legs.
Oh yeah.
It's all body lock stuff. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know.
Which is actually better for this type matchup. Cause if he's shooting in, you don't want him to shoot in and catch a big uppercut or a kick. Cause Shahbazyan uses his kicks really well too. You know, coming in, protecting your chin, holding him against the cage and working him down is a much safer takedown anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not touching it, but yeah, I would take a stab at Shahbazyan if I got the right line on something.
I have Shahbazyan in my lineup because he's $7,300, and I said it's feast or famine. I needed the money, so
and you're hungry.
I'm hoping for feast. I needed the money. I mean, he's $7,300. He is in my lineup. I don't love that he's in there, but I might. So we'll talk about that in the full DraftKings breakdown video. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have David Dvorak versus Raulian Paiva. And this is very even to me. I don't care what's on the screen. I think this is an absolute, almost as even as a fight can get. They're both very good strikers. They both have decent grappling. I think Dvorak, what? Oh, you were just adjusting your old man headset? I thought you said something. Dvorak has phenomenal forward pressure. I think that is the difference in this fight is his forward pressure. But I think skill for skill, these guys are about as even as you could possibly get. Jacob with the face. Jacob, I'll let you go with the face.
What's your vector, Victor?
What?
What?
Airplane. Come on, guys. You never saw the movie
Oh
Airplane?
man, an old man joke from the old man with the old man headset.
Come on, man. All you guys with your fun gadgets and your Wi-Fi. I'm over here connected by the cord.
Yeah. Drinking
right
tea.
into my, yeah, right. I have the leaves in the kitchen. I grind them up.
All right, Jacob, please save us.
I don't know if it's my turn yet. I have no idea what's going on anymore. But yeah, I have David in my lineup, and I think he wins this fight. I don't think it's as close as you think it is. The guy hasn't lost in 9 years. And the only thing that worries me about putting him in my DraftKings lineup is he is kind of a counter puncher, so it could be lower volume than I would like as far as DraftKings goes. But you know, he's just a fantastic fighter as far as like his fight awareness. He just knows where to be, knows when to slip punches, knows when to lead with volume, knows when to kind of sit back and wait. Also with his grappling too, his grappling is, you mentioned, is I think you said that they're kind of even on the grappling.
They're both good grapplers, yeah.
His grappling is so fast. He's so quick with it. You know, I mentioned he's got great awareness. Paiva, I think he missed weight in his last fight. He looks a little bit sloppier to me. He will get taken down. I think David wins this fight. I think he needs to be the aggressor in this fight because there is times where you see him waiting for that counter shot. I think if he comes to this fight, he is the aggressor, shoots some takedowns. I think he just absolutely dominates this fight. So he's in my lineup. I'm worried. The only thing I'm worried about, like I said, is his lack of aggression sometimes, waiting for those counter shots because they're both kind of counter punchers. Neither one of them, you know, want to come forward. So I think if David comes out, is the aggressor, gets the takedowns, I think he dominates the fight. And that's why he's in my DraftKings lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I think he wins. I'm surprised. I actually thought he had decent forward pressure. And that's why the strike line is what it is. Because if you look at his stats, he has pretty good output and he moves forward. And
Paiva too. I mean, he won he did not win that last fight. So if he didn't win that last fight, he would have been 1-3 in the UFC as well. So he looks like he's coming in on a 2-fight win streak, but I just rewatched that fight the other day. He did not win that fight. So
no, I agree with that, but it wasn't that a gift from God because didn't he have, he was on the wrong side of one of those early in his career too.
Not sure. I don't know. He missed weight and then just got taken down a bunch. I mean, just easily taken down, just like grabbing the back of the leg and he's falling down. I mean, it was.
He lost to Kai Kara France.
That's right. He beat Kai Kara France. That's right.
Right. Which is,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, the wins are like the wins are a little all over the place with both these guys.
Yeah. And when I say he beat him, he lost the decision, but he won that fight. He should have gotten that decision. And then karma gave it back to him in his last fight when he didn't earn it. So Daniel, what are your thoughts? Do you also think David Dvorak wins?
I do. I think it is going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a one-sided victory, but I think he's got the edge in a couple areas. So when I was watching tape on him, you know, first of all, he's 2-0 in the UFC, solid wins. Jordan Espinosa and Bruno Silva, my man, Bruno Silva, making me that cash. Guy's on a 16-fight win streak, right? There are certain fighters that you look at, and when you see them, you're like, oh man, there's nothing special about that guy. He's beatable, but they just keep winning. They keep managing to win. They find a way to win. They don't do the fancy things. They don't do the spinning back kicks, but they have good fundamentals, good defense, good striking. And that's what Dvorak is. He's got some power too, but I think he is just a traditional striker that has good fundamentals. He keeps his hands up. He doesn't overcommit to things, so he doesn't get caught in mistakes. And he waits for openings, and when he finds them, he takes advantage of them. I think he's just a very, very polished fighter. He's got some very, very good leg kicks. I mean,
the low leg kicks, yeah.
Yeah, he's got the calf kicks. He's some of those, the smack you heard from those kicks in his last fight, like that guy's, his opponent's going to be walking, Espinosa is going to be walking with a limp for a while. But yeah, Dvorak just methodically walked him down in that fight. Didn't overcommit, didn't go crazy. So, and Espinosa, I think, is a very, very good striker. And we know how I feel about Bruno Silva. So I'm impressed with him even though watching him on tape, you're like, there's nothing really impressive about the guy. So then we look at Raulian Paiva, 25 years old. He's 2-2 in the UFC. We just talked about it. He's got wins against De La Rosa and Ismagulov, but he kind of lost that last one. And then the split decision with Kai Kara France. And then he also lost to Bontorin, who we know from last weekend is a beast. I think it was a cut too. So, not really a true loss. But anyways, in his fights, he's gone to 13 decisions. So from a DraftKings standpoint, you just got to factor that in. He's got a good striking base, wiry frame, good kicks. Doesn't look overly aggressive, kind of more of a, I don't want to say a counter striker, but just a rangier fighter. So I agree with you, Angelo. There is some concern from a DraftKings standpoint, like if this is going to be a high volume scoring fight. So I don't have either of these guys in here right now. As far as the fight goes, I'm taking Dvorak. I just think it'll be fundamentals and defense that'll keep him ahead in this fight. I don't think he'll get hit a lot. I think he'll time the openings when he sees them. He'll land the cleaner shots. I think he'll land those leg kicks. And he's got, a decent amount of KOs in his career. So I think he's live for a finish if Paiva overcommits to something. So Dvorak is the pick. I'm not putting either of them in my lineup just because there is some concern that it's a bit of a sparring match and not a ton of volume.
Yeah, it'll be it'll be interesting to see where it goes because I do think they're pretty even. I thought David Dvorak had better pressure. You're saying he also has better fundamentals. So he should be the pick here, but it's interesting. If we look at this significant strike line, I'll go less on Dvorak, more on Paiva. I think it will be standing for the most part. I just don't think it'll be a crazy back and forth war. I think they are very evenly matched, but I just don't think there's going to be a ton of pressure, striking pressure, at least from either one of them. So I would go the less more for my monkey knife fight line. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Felicia Spencer versus Norma Dumont Viana. And these fights are always tricky. Felicia Spencer, big time favorite. DraftKings says so. Her record says so because she lost a 5-round decision to Amanda Nunes. So it's just so funny because it's almost become this world. Oh, wow, you went 5 rounds and lost? You didn't get knocked out in 1 round? You must be amazing. And it's just so funny how a dominant loss like that can have some clout and help you out. So, Felicia Spencer, very good grappler, a ton of pressure, always looking for the finish, not good on her feet, pretty sloppy on her feet. And then Norma Dumont is very good on her feet. She's very relaxed, has lots of comfort. There's no question who's better at which skill. It's just a matter of who can impose their actual will. I was hoping that Norma Dumont or Norma Viana would be a much bigger underdog because I would like her in that spot. But, plus 125 odds, I don't think I'm going to do anything with that. The strike line's an interesting one. There's a lot to digest here. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you mentioned that Nunes fight against Felicia Spencer, and I think that the biggest tell of that fight was you could tell that Nunes respected Felicia. She wasn't as aggressive as she has been in the past against people. Usually, she just kind of marches in and just takes control of the fight. You saw her against Megan Anderson do that. So you could tell that Nunes knew that Felicia Spencer was a threat, and that's why she kind of kept her distance and really fought a very good fight. I mean, Nunes is Nunes, so she was going to win that fight. But Felicia, hung tough, and she didn't give up at all. I mean, Felicia, even in the 5th round, is shooting takedowns, still trying to find a way to get that victory. So I think that showed a lot in Felicia. A lot of times, like you said, a loss is a loss, and you can't really go off a loss. But I saw some toughness in Felicia Spencer, and if you look at Norma's last loss. Again, I think it was against Megan Anderson. She tried for a takedown. She's really trying to push that takedown against Megan and really kind of pushed her up against the fence for like 2 rounds. Megan's 6 foot tall, so that she was probably trying to negate that length from Megan. But then she tried for that takedown for like 2 minutes, couldn't get it, got off the fence and looked exhausted to me. I mean, her hands were low, and then Megan just came with that straight right and just absolutely dropped her. So cardio to me might be an issue in this fight, especially with Felicia. I mean, cardio was not an issue against Nunes. Nunes was taking Felicia down, and still Felicia was pressing forward in the 5th round, and that's 5 rounds of that. So I think Felicia, she was actually almost made it in my lineup. I think she gets control of this fight. I think she finds a way to get to the ground. And I think she dominates even with her cardio, with her tenacity, and wins this fight in fantastic fashion. So I have her winning. She didn't quite make it in my lineup, but I have her winning this fight.
Yeah, I completely agree. She's not in my lineup, but that's because I couldn't afford her. But I do like her to win this fight. I think it's a pretty straightforward win. It's a grappler versus striker for the most part matchup. And it's just a giant gap in the grappling. Her grappling is very strong, and she's very active when she gets there. She doesn't have like these desperate takedowns and just lay on top. She's very, very busy. The strike line is interesting. This is an interesting strike line because it's somewhat close, but they're low-ish. I don't know necessarily what to do with that, but if you do and you want to get some free money and triple it, go to playmkf.com/wewantpicks, deposit $20. They'll match the 20, take the free 20, play this line, you'll win. Then you'll get 60 because it triples and you have all this free money. You never had to risk your own. I would play. Oh man. I would play the oof. So it's all strikes now, not just significant strikes. So even if Felicia Spencer, not even if, when she gets this to the ground, every one of those pitter-patter strikes counts. So I think I'm going to go more or less. I think that's my play here. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, Angelo, but I mean, one thing I would say is that if this line gets a little carried away, like I was looking at it earlier in the week, and I think Spencer is more than minus 145 now. But I think Dumont is not bad. I think she's live in this fight. I don't think she'll win, but I think she can be competitive. Like, she looked really good her last fight, I thought, against Ashley Evans-Smith. She looked tough. She had some good counter shots, powerful counters. She got some takedowns of her own. She just looked, tougher than I expected, kind of coming off that previous loss. So I will say Smith did look off. I think maybe she had an injury or something, but I don't know. I think everyone's very high on Felicia Spencer here, and I don't disagree. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see a closer fight than kind of what people are thinking. So I'm not touching it for DraftKings just because there's other $7,500 fighters that I think will definitely score a ton more points. And I don't think $8,700 is worth it for Felicia Spencer. So staying away.
Yeah, I would have used her at 8,700 if I can get her into my lineup, but I'm actually surprised she's not more money, honestly. DraftKings loves these striker versus grappler matchups, and they love making grapplers a fortune. But anyway, I am curious to see the outcome of this fight. We need some life in this division because it is just so dominant right now. It's not a very exciting division. So I hope there is a big win out of somebody. Honestly, for division's sake, probably Norma Dumont. But either way, I'll be tuned in. We'll see what happens. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa. Dan loves Jared Vanderaa. Dan bet the house on Jared Vanderaa. Dan was all in on Vanderaa versus Spivak, and boy, did Dan look stupid. So you hold a grudge.
You picked them too, you lie.
Relax. I'm still doing the intro.
Oh my God, what a hypocrite.
To relax. I'm still doing the intro. So
you're slurring your words. You can't even say his last name,
I'm drinking water. I can't say his last name because my blood boils when I see it. So what I will say, I'm with you there. Jared Vanderaa looked horrific against a guy twice his age and not twice his age, but a guy half his size. He just looked horrific. In his last fight, Spivak just lit him up, made him look like an absolute moron. With that being said, I actually think in this matchup,
don't do it.
Not a bad matchup for him.
Go listen to one of his interviews. Don't do it.
I think it's not a terrible matchup. I mean, he is a wrestler. You can't tell from his last fight because that was terrible. And I talked to Nick Newell earlier today, and Nick is normally on our show, but he's not here now because he's training for a fight in 3 weeks in Bellator, so he needs to focus on that. And Nick said, it's funny because I was like, I think Jared's like a decent matchup for Tafa because of the wrestling. And Nick's exact words were, everybody says that because Jared beat Hadzovic in his UFC debut. And he's like, I could have beaten Hadzovic my UFC debut. So, and Nick's 155 pounder. So I guess he doesn't really appreciate that win. He's got no qualms about it. He thinks Justin Tafa gets it done. But what's so funny is Justin Tafa has 6 fights. It's not like he's been around, I feel like, forever. And he's like a name at this point, but he hasn't done much, which is interesting. Either way, I'll pass it off. But I do think stylistically, Jared Van Dam is not a miserable matchup. Justin Tafa is like a Tai Tuivasa. Solid leg kicks, good striking, Samoan chin. Like, he's not going anywhere. So I think Jared can take him down and beat him up down there. But Daniel, try to calm yourself down, be unbiased, and let me know what you think.
So if Bruno Silva is my favorite, Jared Vandera, not Vandana, or whatever you said 17 times, is one of my least favorite. There's one more that's worse than him, but yeah, Angelo, were both pretty heavy on him as being a live dog in his last fight, just going against Spivak, who's, like you said, a 220 something pound heavyweight, against Vandera, who's a legit 265. I'll never forget. I was, doing some research on the fight, and he was like, "Oh, I'm working with a 290 pound heavyweight wrestler for this fight." I was like, "Yes, he's gonna come out." Oh my God, did he get smoked that fight? So, anyways, I don't know what to expect out of this guy. Honestly, go listen to one of his interviews. He seems like a free spirit. So I don't know what he's doing, if he's training, if he's not, if he's got a good game plan, or if he doesn't. But I'm not betting on him. I think I am going to put Justin Tafa in my lineup. He's
well,
not
you really hate Vandera that it's blinded you.
This could backfire on me, right?
I mean,
he's gonna come out and be like an Olympic wrestler, switching single leg to double leg. I might have to take a week off.
$1,000, dude.
Listen, I honestly, Newell put it right. Like, I got sold on that fight because he took Hadzovic down and looked like a beast on top. But Hadzovic took that fight on 4 days notice. And Vandera got lit up the first round of that fight. And just because he's a 265 pound big guy, big brothered him to the ground. But I don't think that's going to cut it against Justin. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's interesting dynamic because I haven't seen a ton of takedown defense out of Tafa either. So this could be a fight where that gets exposed. So that's why I don't have him in there right now, but I'm very tempted to take Tafa because
2 seconds ago I have Justin Tafa in my lineup.
No, I said I don't, and I'm thinking about putting him in there. At least I think that's what I said. I don't know, man. If Vandera might go listen to one of his interviews, man. Please. He might not even come out with a wrestling game plan. He might think he's going to strike with Tafa like that.
Yeah, that would be a mistake.
Yeah, I know. But literally, he might think that might be his game plan. He may have thought it up himself. Anyways, I don't know what's going to happen with this. If they strike, Justin Tafa is going to beat him up. If Vandera does get some wrestling going on, we're going to find out if Tafa has any defense. So I don't know. My pick's Justin Tafa. I think he's going to light him up on the feet. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Vandera figured out a way to get it to the ground and use some grappling. So.
Well, I think Jared definitely has a path to victory, and I think he's a live dog in this fight, especially at $7,200. If those odds move more and he's a +2 something, I'll definitely throw a money line on him. Jacob, how do you see it going? And do you agree that Jared's a live underdog?
I think Justin should win this fight for sure. He got knocked out in his UFC debut, but that was because, he was 3-0 as a pro, was TKO and everybody, and got a little bit aggressive with the Castro and got caught. I like him as a fighter overall, as a heavyweight. You know, he's got heavyweight power, but he doesn't really fight like a heavyweight. He's very measured. He can go all 3 rounds if he needs to. He can kind of pick his spots. You saw that against Felipe in his last fight. That was an absolute war. That split decision loss versus Felipe. An incredible fight. I'm really high on Felipe. I love Felipe as a striker. He's a very high volume striker, and Tafa went toe to toe with him. I think Tafa is going to end up his career where he's, really up there for a title shot eventually. And you might see a record of like 15-4, 15-3 at some point. I think he just rattles off a ton in a row. I think it starts with Jared. Like you said, we don't know what we're going to get with Jared in this fight. So he could come out and wrestle, but I think Tafa still can sit back, measure, hit those counter shots with some bad takedown attempts by Jared. So I don't trust it enough with the 9,000, especially because he's not like the typical heavyweight where if he lands, he will get the knockout shots, but he's just kind of a measured striker, will take his time. And, I don't really like that for $9,000 at a heavyweight in DraftKings. So, 81.5 too for Monkey Knife Out on Jared is just like, I don't know where that number came from, but
I think it assumes, I bet because it's total strikes now, not significant. And I think in Jared's wins, he's on top, and these little pepper hit somebody in the head while covering their mouth. Those all count. So I'm thinking I think statistically it would make sense. I just don't know what'll happen here.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm going less. Justin Tafa knockout first minute.
Finish your thought, Jacob, before Daniel was just so rude.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, that's fine. I agree. I think Tafa wins the fight.
All right. Well, good thing I circled back on that. But I do think it's funny because if it was tied to Ivasa instead of Justin Tafa, I'd be like guarantee win, worth every nickel. But I don't know, man.
So what's interesting? I don't know if you guys knew, but so Justin Tafa fights like Mark Hunt, and Mark Hunt was legitimately like his mentor. Right? Like there's some interviews where he said that he would probably still be like in a homeless shelter or something if it weren't for Mark Hunt. So they have very similar styles too. You can just see, that calculated, sit back, wait for it.
He's better than Mark Hunt. He's better than Mark Hunt.
Dude, that's a bold statement.
That is a bold.
Mark Hunt's like a 500 fighter.
Oh my God, Jacob, this is.
Yeah, but you didn't watch his career, dude.
Right.
I watched all the biggest knockouts, but look, what's his record? Look at his record right now.
It doesn't matter.
You are what your record is. What do you mean doesn't matter? You are what your record is.
Oh my God.
So is BJ Penn?
Tafa is nowhere.
Right. BJ Penn's. What is BJ Penn, Jacob?
Randy Couture. All of them have shit records.
Right.
I can't say the S word.
I know. We'll see what happens. We'll see if this video gets unmonetized. So anyway, I do think this is we got off topic with Mark Hunt there. I think this is a weird fight. I hope Justin Tafa knocks out Jared Vanderaa because I want to see more Justin Tafa. He's the type of person you want to watch. He's the type of person you want to see go through the ranks. I don't want to see more of Jared Vanderaa. So I do think he's live in this fight, but I hope Justin Tafa goes out there, blows his head off, and then gets some really cool striker heavyweight matchups. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have Yan Xiaonan versus Carla Esparza, and I am really trying to get these names right. Lots of effort on my part. Please let me know in the comments how much you appreciate that. I'm an all-time fan of Carla Esparza. I will always pick her. I just think her wrestling, she's an actual wrestler. Like lots of times we talk about in these women fights, oh, she's a wrestler, she's a grappler. And even if someone has a wrestler heavy game plan, like a Felicia Spencer, she didn't grow up wrestling. She went to MMA, started jiu-jitsu, and became a wrestler or learned how to wrestle. Carla Esparza actually grew up wrestling, like wrestled competitively in school. So she's a real wrestler with real wrestler instincts and just sort of real wrestler muscle memory. And it shows. Sometimes she's too wrestling heavy, but I'm a big fan of Carla Esparza. She was a Brawl and Mall sponsored fighter forever before she went to the UFC. Brawl and Mall has been nothing but amazing to everybody. So anyway, I'm not even going to break down Yan just yet. I'm going with Carla. She's my pick. I'm a big fan of hers and her style. Daniel, you're smiling at me. I'm not going to do the Jacob, her Instagram, this, that, the other thing. I will say I'm a big fan. So Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this was one of the most interesting fights on the card, I think, when I was breaking down the tape and just looking at matchups and all of that, because Yan is extremely good. She hasn't lost a fight since 2010. Like, that's insane. She's been on a, I mean, she hasn't, I mean, you would think that would be 40 fights, but it's been a long run for her since she's lost. She's got a very quiet 6-0 in the UFC as well, too. I didn't even realize she had been fighting in the UFC for that long. She's a tall, good striker, uses that jab to set up punches, and she's got some pretty hard shots and decent power. But in watching tape on her last fight against Gadea, it was like the perfect, well, almost perfect tape to watch.
Similar matchup, yeah.
Similar, but there's one big difference, and I mean, you're probably already know what I'm getting at, but in that fight against Gadea, it was very similar, right? Gadea wanted to get it to the ground, and Yan wanted to keep it standing. So Gadea got it down in the first, body lock, takedown. What Yan did well, though, she worked to the cage. She stood up right away. She started working to stand up. When she got up, she started throwing some good punches, got taken down again off a single. She threw an inside kick. I hope for this fight she just gets rid of that, but she got taken down off a single leg. Same thing, spent most of the round on her back. She lost that first round. The second round, though, she used that jab and her footwork and her distance to where Gadea was a little bit more tired after working to get those takedowns, and she could not close the distance. And I think Jan's jab and just awareness of distance is what made it impossible for Gadea to get those takedowns. And she made her pay for it. She kept hitting her with the jab, 1-2, just hitting her with clean boxing shots throughout the fight. And she never overcommitted with her strikes, which also made it very hard for her to be taken down. So then we look at Carla Esparza. So tons of UFC experience, all against top competition. Impressive 4-fight win streak. The last two were very close. She got a split decision over against Marina Rodriguez and then Michelle Waterson in her last two fights. But this is another one where her last fight was another good example to watch of how this fight could play out, right? So, and you already talked about all her wrestling credentials. Started in high school, went all the way through. So she's a legit wrestler. But her last fight against Marina Rodriguez, a striker who was going to try to not have the fight be on the ground. So right off the bat, very, very different takedown, right? Not a body lock, grabs the snatch single, runs the pipe, gets it to the ground. The wrestling that Carla Esparza does is very different from Gadea. It's freestyle, get to the legs, take down, single, double, all that sort of stuff, not body locks. So I think that's one big edge that she will have in this fight. Is her wrestling, like you said, is legit wrestling. She's going to be going to single legs, looking to snatch and get on those legs. Rodriguez in that fight, again, stylistically a little bit different, spent most of the round on her back playing guard. So instead of standing up like Yan tries to do, Rodriguez was throwing elbows, throwing up triangles, doing things like that. But you lose rounds like that if you don't get it. It ended up being a split decision, but I thought Esparza dominated the wrestling in that fight and won the fight clearly. So anyways, the big difference between the two, I kind of already talked about part of it, is Esparza and Jan's last fight with Gadea. Gadea was always going for the body lock. Esparza is going to be going for the legs. The big difference between Yan and Rodriguez is that Yan will be working to get up when she gets taken down, if she gets taken down. And the other thing is, the other big difference is she's not going to overcommit with her strikes like Rodriguez did to expose herself for takedowns. So they're not going to be as readily there as they were in the last fight. Like Yan is very, very calculated, keeps firing that jab. She's not throwing wild shots like Marina Rodriguez did. So I think there's just a bunch of interesting kind of stylistic things that are going to play out in this fight. And we'll see who kind of imposes their game plan. I think Esparza is going to win the first round for sure. I think she's going to get the takedowns, but I wouldn't be surprised if the second and the third, she started to get tired and Yan just starts picking her apart with the jab, she starts having a hard time closing the distance. And Yan wins the second and third with a ton of volume in boxing. So I think Yan's going to win the fight, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I love Esparza in this. I think the real wrestling is helpful, and like you said, it's not body locks. Yan wants to throw that jab. Well, Carla can duck under it and take a shot. Where Gajaya, that wasn't an option for her. Either way, I don't have Carla in my lineup. I do think she's a great pick for a lineup because Yan's going to stand right back up and Carla's going to take it right back down. That's 5 points for every single takedown, and that will add up. This is the type of fight where even if Carla loses, she'll score good points. And I don't think she'll get stopped. I don't think Carla will get stopped. Yan's not necessarily a killing machine. She's a sort of a point machine. But Jacob, what are your thoughts here? And what do you think about the strike line for Monkey Knife Fight?
Yeah, to your point, Yan does not have a finish in the UFC. She's 6-0 in the UFC, but she hasn't finished anyone. I also don't think she's going to finish Carla. I think that Carla's probably going to get the takedowns that she wants. It's not going to be as easy as I think everyone thinks because, Yan's got great balance. And she also got good throws too. If somebody tries to take her down with a body lock, she'll judo throw them and end up on top. The thing that is the difference maker to me is Carla's probably going to get a takedown and she'll probably get in guard. She's not going to like being in Yan's guard because I've never seen a more active fighter on her back in my life. Elbows from the bottom, just non-stop. So if you take her down and you're in the guard, you're going to get hit in the face and you're going to get hit in the face a lot and you're not going to like being there. So Carla's going to have to transition to half guard, to side control, something, because if you sit in her guard, you're going to get punished for it. And the biggest thing I saw too with Yan is she's one of those fighters that knows when she has to win a round. You can just tell that when she's down around, if it's close, that Claudio fight, it's 1-1 going to the third, you could tell she picks up the volume, she picks up the pace, she knows when she has to win a round, and she wins the rounds. She wins decisions for a reason. I mean, she just finds a way to win those rounds. So I definitely think that Carla will get the takedowns. I don't think she's going to like being where she's at on the ground with those takedowns. And I think that Yan ends up winning this fight. She wins a decision, wins, stuffs some takedown late and finds the volume to win a decision with the judges. So I like Yan winning this fight. I actually tried to find a way to work her into my lineup. And then I kind of backtracked on that a little bit because of Carla's, grappling ability. So she's not in my lineup, but I think she wins the fight.
And I think the best possible bet on this entire card will be one of those plus 3.5s that we love with Carla Esparza. I think she will win a round with the takedowns. And maybe
probably not going to get great odds on it, though. I don't think.
I know that they're starting to wise up to those because you don't even need to win a full round. Win a full round's the easiest math. She could just have one judge on each round, give it to her. Right.
And another
thing, got a couple takedowns.
Another thing I don't really like about Carla either, which this is like a confidence thing, and it works for some fighters. She's already talking about her title shot. She's like, "Yeah, once I beat Yan, I'll get my title shot and stuff." It's like you better be real careful here, real careful.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy fight, and it will be interesting to see what happens to this line throughout the week because Carla is a grappler. She is a name. Not many people know of Yan, so I'd be curious how much casual money comes in and moves the line the wrong way. Just because, the name. But either way, I'm looking forward to the matchup. The strike line, if you want to double your money in your deposit, go to playmkf.com/we-want-picks, make a deposit. Monkey Knife Fights will instantly match that deposit. You now have double. So let's say it's $20. You now have 40. Take the free 20, play it on this line. I think the play is less more because I don't think Yan is going to get off all the strikes that she normally does because of Carla's wrestling. It will be more relentless than other wrestlers she's matched up with. And I think 52.5, I think Carla can get more because she will get some takedowns. And when she gets them, I think she's going to throw. And this is every single strike, not significant strikes. So I think we can get less out of Yan. I think Carla can get more. I might wait to see what happens to Carla's number because I'd like to see it drop or raise so I can be more confident. But either way, I think it's a good line to play, especially the less on Yan. Next up at UFC Vegas 27, we have the main event between Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt, a surging up-and-comer coming off of a ridiculous win. versus a former champion who has some ridiculous wins. This is an awesome main event. I love this main event. The odds makers are dead on. This is an even fight. So we do our research. We try to figure out who do we think is going to win. Then we share that with you. So what do? We reached out to Rob Font's coach, his actual coach, and he sent us this video.
My prediction for the fight this Saturday night, come on now. You already know. Got to go with my man, Rob Font. He's got the skills. We got the game plan. It's going to be a good fight, but we know we got enough to get it done and get a hand raise on Saturday night.
So Nick Newell is good friends with Rob. We're all from Connecticut. Nick is in legend on that scene. So Nick's good friends with Rob. Nick's good friends with his coach. Texted him and said, hey, can you give us a breakdown for the channel? Obviously, he's not going to divulge their exact game plan, but they are very confident. And I am confident as well. This is a razor thin fight. And maybe this is the Northeast in me, but I think Rob Font wins this fight. I think, obviously, they're both very good boxers. They're both technical boxers. I think Rob has the better chin. And I think Rob has I know Rob has more composure. So I think his chin can withstand some of the early big shots from Cody, and his composure will keep him in it, where Cody's composure will literally take him out of it. And we've seen this a few times. But before I jump too far into this, Jacob, I'll let you go. I know you're a big Cody Garbrandt fan and have been for a very long time. So what is this matchup like for you?
Cody Garbrandt against if you put him in the octagon versus anyone, he's going to be better. He's going to be the better fighter versus 99% of them. I mean, I think he's talent-wise, he's just incredible. His speed, I think he's one of the best boxers in the UFC. I mean, it's just incredible. But like you said, it's that right hand that gets him in trouble. I don't, he had TJ hurt in the first fight. He starts loading up on the right hand, gets caught. Had TJ hurt in the second fight, loads up on the right hand, gets caught. Had Pedro Munoz hurt, loads up on the right hand, gets caught. Even in his last fight that he won, he loads up on the right hand, and this time he ended up beating the guy to the punch. So it's just honestly, if I was his coach, and this is not even joking, I would tape his right hand to his side, and I honestly think he could win this fight with his speed with just a left-hand jab and a quick check left hook. That's how talented he is. I mean, there's no denying how talented. His fight versus Dominic Cruz is one of the most ridiculous title fights of all time. Just the masterpiece he put on Dominic Cruz, who was just dominating everyone up to that point. And then Garbrandt comes in and just looks untouchable and was just piecing up Dominic Cruz. And then he fights Dillashaw, and he's starting doing the same thing, but then he just gets overconfident with that right hand. He just thinks he can beat everyone with that right hand, and he does a lot of times. But so I have Garbrandt in my lineup, and I hate it because like I said, he's the better fighter. I think he's a better fighter versus anyone you put him up against. It's just, is he going to stay composed in those moments? In last fight, he was staying composed. He was very, very patient, picking his spots. You saw the speed in and out. He was, I can't remember who was on the broadcast, but they were like, this is the Garbrandt that we've been waiting to see, the old Garbrandt. He's very in and out, very quick. And then you saw at the end of the round, he ducks and loads up on that right hand again, and he connected with it. But if that's in the middle of the round, what happens? So, I have Garbrandt. I think he should win, but Jesus, man, just stay composed and just fight like just a normal fight. And he should dominate because he's got the speed advantage. Rob Font is not as fast as Garbrandt. His power is. The thing that's going to hurt Cody in this fight is Rob Font is very good at just like very tight shots, right? There's not a lot of looping shots that Garbrandt can slip and then come back with. Everything is just right down the pipe with Rob Font. So he's going to have some issues with that jab, but Cody's just so fast. He should win this fight with the striking. And Cody's got grappling in his back pocket too. He's a high school wrestler. He can wrestle if he wants to. So, if he comes in and starts shooting shots, I think that would be a decent game plan as well. So I have Cody winning this fight. He's in my DraftKings lineup because if he's going to win, in fantastic fashion and just completely outclass Font. But if he loses, we all know how he loses. So this is definitely, I think the odds got it right. It's a coin toss, but I'm going with Cody, man. I'm riding it, and I'm just hoping and praying that he figures it out.
Yeah, I don't think any outcome will surprise me in this fight. Either one of them knocking each other out would not surprise me because Rob Font, look at his fight against Marlon Moraes. That was a masterpiece. I mean, and Marlon Moraes is a savage. He's a savage with his hands, with his feet. Like Marlon Moraes is an animal. Rob Font whooped him. And I picked Rob Font. I had him in my lineup. I smoked Dan that week. I think you had the Venmo me 3 times in our side bet. I beat you so bad. So I'm still riding the Rob.
Must
Font
have been
train.
a long time ago. Let's see when that
I'm
was.
still riding that
December
Rob.
2020, the last time Angelo won a bet for me. All right, now we know.
Took your money 2 weeks ago. You're embarrassing yourself.
Oh my Lord! I should just screenshot the incoming Venmo payments for me.
People see our lineups. It's not a genius. Anyway, I think Rob Font. I agree with everything you said, Jacob. And Cody's faster. Cody has more power, but Rob Font is more technical and way more composed and has the better chin. And I think those three.
I don't think he's more technical. I don't think there's anyone more technical than Cody. When Cody fights like the way he and I agree, like when he fights the way he should, I don't think there's any strike. I think Cody's one of the best strikers in any weight class in the UFC as far as technicality. But when he starts getting wild, I agree. Rob Font's going to fight the same way all the time. And then Cody's going to start coming with looping stuff. And that's when he gets in trouble. So,
yeah. And I think it's a 5-round fight, 5 rounds. So I think Rob Font wins because the first 2 rounds will be a problem. And then Rob Font will start to make adjustments, focus in, stay focused, keep doing what he's supposed to do. And Cody may get frustrated, may see a glimpse of hope, and it may not go his way. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Cody put Rob's lights out. I wouldn't be surprised if Cody fights the way he's supposed to, like you said, Jacob. And this looks like Rob's teammate. This looks like Calvin Kattar versus Hawaiian champ Max Holloway. It could look like that because Cody could fight the in and out technical and just light him up. Either way, I have Rob Font. I think his commitment to stick to the task and stay focused will win him this fight. But Daniel, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think it's funny you guys are talking about who's more technical. I think they are both technical. Cody is more athletic and Rob is more disciplined. I think that's what it comes down to. Rob will stick to the game plan, whereas Cody sometimes will be like, F it, I'm going to trade with you. Jacob, you said it well. His last fight, he kind of showed like, all right, after he won on that 3-fight skid where he was like just basically going out there and flipping a coin, like, all right, let's just trade shots and see who can knock the other one out first. It's like, I'm better than that. I don't need to do that. So anyways, I think we're going to see one of the best versions we've seen of Cody Garbrandt. I agree. He's the more athletic, the more skilled guy here. I think he's got a more well-rounded overall MMA game. Jacob, you said it with his wrestling in his back pocket. I think the kid is just a talented kid. So he's my pick. I think it'll be a close fight while they're exchanging, right? Rob Font is no joke. He's very good. But this is definitely a true pick'em for DraftKings. I'm taking the value here in Garbrandt mainly because I think he's more athletic and if he fights smart, should win the fight. And B, he's got the higher upside for a knockout finish. So for me, I'll go with the 7,900 on that all day.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I have Rob Font in my lineup, but depending what happens later in the week and at weigh-ins, I might make adjustments. I'm not dying to push him out of my lineup at all because 8,300 is not a lot of money. Obviously, 7,900 is better money, but I do genuinely think Rob Font wins. So, and real quick, if we look at the Monkey Knife Fight line, I like the more on both. I don't see a stoppage, at least not early. And if there is, it'll be on the Cody side, meaning Cody will knock out Rob. But I still think, I said that wrong. I think Rob would stop Cody if there's a knockout. I think Rob's chin is really tough. And I know Cody has that power and that speed, but Rob's got a real chin on him. So I think, I think they'll get past the strikes here. I think we'll get more than 82 out of Rob. And I definitely think we'll get more than 52 out of Cody. But, again,
I hope Cody wins because nothing against Rob. Cody's just so much fun to watch, man. You watch his striking, the speed of his striking is just unreal. It doesn't even look real how fast he is. So I hope he wins for the division and I hope he becomes champ again. I'm a big Cody fan.
Yeah. And I am too. I love, he is super fun to watch. And I'm always rooting for him when he fights. I just think Rob wins. And this may be recency bias because of the Marlon Moraes win. And this may be Northeast bias because everybody, he's a Northeast kid. I'm a Northeast guy. And it's, I don't know. There's like a weird connection there. But either way, I think this is a ridiculously good matchup and a phenomenal main event. So let us know in the comments what you think about this fight, what you think about the other fights. Make sure you sign up for Monkey Knife Fight. Play mkf.com/WeWantPicks. Promo code WWP. They will instantly match your deposit. So deposit 20. If you've never done it before, just deposit $20. Take the free 20 that they give you with the match. Play any one of these lines. If you hit it, you will triple your money. You play 20, you get 60. You now have $80, and only 20 of it is your actual money. So go in there, play some of these. It is a ton of fun, and I promise you, you will do well. Big giant shout out and humongous thank you to all of our members and supporters. I specifically want to thank Antsy Music, David Ramon, Chris Jory, Dunchichi, Jesse Correa, La Puzza, Joe Todoro, Logan Garrick, X Sweet Spot X, Jordan Bergard, Aaron Reynolds, Brent Hinson, Jill, Juan Valdez, Chris Riley, Kayla Roth, King Rob, Oh My Gosh 1337, Pierre Exelholm, and Chris V. You guys are outstanding. We genuinely appreciate it. If you are an existing member and you have not gotten your commemorative Dan Kramer collecting card, reach out with your
Pokemon cards. They're making a comeback.
Reach out with your address and we will mail it to you. If you are not a member and you want one of those limited edition cards, hit the join button below and we will get one out to you immediately. Members also have the ability to earn $30 in our free DraftKings league instead of the traditional $15 for everybody else. Thank you all.
That's double.
That is double. It's basically an investment. So thank you all very, very much for the support. It is appreciated, and we will see you every single weekend.